following morning, or rather, the same night still, I found myself lying in bed. I had been staring at the ceiling, caught in an endless loop of tossing and turning till I'd finally found a comfortable position. The refracted light of a moon was shining through the small stroke that wasn't covered by my green curtain, which was shaped out of a big leaf. My uncle had enchanted it to grow on a liana, just above my window. It didn't even quite cover the whole gap, and an annoying ray of moonlight always shone through, but I liked it anyway. If anything, the ray reminded me time and again how late it was, way too early to get out. Yet I hadn't been able to sleep all night, not since that dream. Even thinking about it made tears well up in the corners of my eyes. They were fighting to get out, as the memories of that day entered my mind and formed a cloud of sadness amongst my thoughts. I tried to wipe the tears away with the sleeve of my nightgown, but couldn't keep them back any longer. In about a week's worth of time, everything was going to be different. After a few hours of overthinking and sulking about it, I figured I shouldn't let it ruin my day. Much like Anthea was leaving for Arthwell Academy for Fairies and Magic to pick up her studies again, so was Alex. Though they were actually going to attend Bethran Academy for Heroes and Courage. So I decided to start the day by contacting them. I had figured that wouldn't be too much of a hassle, since Uncle Juniper had done most of the wiring work yesterday, but my was I proven wrong. Al, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Why?
They inquired in that monotone voice I knew so well, their heads slightly tilted to the left. I blushed. I'm not nearly as good as you are with the tech stuff, I continued jokingly.
You mean technology?
I giggled at Alex's dead serious expression when they said that.
Did I say something funny?
It was just a joke, Al, explained I, not able to hold back my laughter any longer. Even then, my laugh instantly faded when my worries took the better of me again. I'm really going to miss you. Alex looked puzzled for a few seconds, maybe caught off guard by my sudden remark, or just thinking of a proper way to answer. The logical response convinced me of the latter.
But we are apart now, are we not? And still talking. I do not see why that would suddenly change.
I knew, but still, they were going to be so far away, even further than they were living now, in a different vector of the dimension, on a planet called Bythred. And I was stuck here. I know it won't, Al. I couldn't bring myself to continue. Alex raised their eyebrow. I've come to think of it as their worried face.
What if I reported to you every Friday evening?
They suggested. I smiled. I wouldn't even dare miss your stories. Promise to tell me everything about the magical creatures you encounter. Alex thought again. Just a short while.
If that helps you, then yes, I will promise such a thing,
they stated eventually. They shoved their glasses back to the right position on their nose. Their red glasses. They looked a little odd matched with their blue hair. Actually, everything about them was a little odd, even those big brown eyes of theirs. But I didn't mind. They were my friends. They'd been there for me when I'd felt all lost and alone. Even now, half a cycle later, they were here for me once again.
I promise,
they continued, quickly recovering with,
No, wait. We will just have to let you come over during vacation time. That way, you will be able to see them for yourself.
Their remark made me smile. Alex's attempts at comforting were just the sweetest thing. They weren't very good at it, as is to be expected from a Bythretian, but they tried anyway, and that's what counts. I was just about to thank them when a pop-up showed up on my screen, telling me our energy reserve was about to run out. It reminded me of the first time Alex and I had contacted one another. The pop-up had shown up just as my aunt was watering the plants, and she had plainly dropped the watering can when the alarm went off, I believe the alarm still startles her. Al, the reserve!
Ah, yes. We will see each other in a few days then. You know, Ehrynn, it is going to be alright. I cannot seem to think of anything that would indicate it would not be. Remember, I consider you my best friend, and that will never change.
The monitor went black. Alex? Alex! I laid my hand on the screen and closed my eyes for a moment. You're my best friend too. I was left all alone again in the living room. Not that I'd actually had company before. I don't believe you can call virtual company, can you now? Well, look at me. I guess when you're bored you just start thinking about this kind of stuff. It took about half an hour or so, but eventually I was saved from my boredom by Uncle Juniper. I think he told me about a council meeting he would be attending that day, but I didn't really pay much attention, though his talks usually are of interest to me. After we'd had breakfast together, I sat down on a hill somewhere in a huge Silvean forest. It was a lively and beautiful forest that stretched all the way from the sage in the east to Silvea College, my school, in the west. It provided a home to a wide variety of vegetation and all kinds of animals, like the gentlebugs I've mentioned before. And it was my home now too. I sighed and opened my sketchbook, turning the pages till I found a blank one. I gently took my pencil between my fingers and was already halfway through raising my hand to advance my drawing, when I came to a halt. I took a look at the sky, the trees and the endless rivers, everything I could see from my little spot on the small hill, with my mind wandering off, thinking about everything that had happened to me last cycle. I know I told you just a while ago how this isn't the best time to discuss this, but it's a huge part of the story, and it may be even more important than the things you've read before. It's an explanation of how I ended up here in the first place, and I don't mean on this tiny hill. I grew up on Earth, or so I've been told. I don't remember much from that time. I don't know who my mother and father were, or even who I am. The only thing I do know is that everything changed the day the hunters attacked my home. I lost about everything that day. My home, my memories, and most importantly, my family. The only thing remaining from the life I've lived back then is the necklace my elder had given me in my dream. It has this little pendant, shaped like a lotus flower attached to the cold metal it's made of. For as far as I could tell, it wasn't anything special, just a reminder of who I was, and I held on to everything that could tell me about my past, even if only a little. You see, I was a bit of an outcast on Silvea, being the only one from another realm and even someone without any signs of magical abilities, aside from in my dreams. Most of the girls at my school could grow trees or heal plants with a single snap of their fingers, but that wasn't the case for me. Most of my fellow classmates didn't mind that much and didn't treat me all that differently, but I didn't really fit in. And truth is, I had even started to believe I would never get to be a fairy. But then, whenever I was dreaming that dream again, I couldn't help but notice the magical source I had possessed in it. Maybe I was just seeing ghosts, or maybe it was a somewhat exaggerated version of what had actually happened, but I couldn't get it out of my mind. And then there was that girl. Who was she? Did I know her when I was still living on Earth? Or did I meet her somewhere else? And was dreaming about her just a coincidence, or was she trying to communicate with me through my dreams? I noticed how I was clenching my pendant in my hand, so I released it. I examined it like I'd done so many times before, turning it from one side to the other and back again, hoping it would somehow bring me a clue of any kind. But all it did was glow against the darkness of my enclosed hand. About 10 minutes later, I had already sketched out most of the drawing. It was to be a drawing for my Aunt Astra, to give to her as she had been a little stressed those weeks. When I was just about to put the pencil down, my eyes got drawn to the sky. I saw Nevadora, hanging up there like it always had. It was actually a pretty scary sight. Such a dark moon gloaming right above our heads, like something could creep out of the darkness at any minute. I remembered when I first came to Silvea after the attack of the hunters. By the time I had just been introduced at school, and one of the girls in class, Ameria, had taken my sketchbook from me after I'd failed a basic magic exercise. Even if I had only gotten around to drawing something on the first page, as the book had been gifted to me by my uncle just before going to school, I'd still felt so sad and angry when she took the page and tore it apart. I had pushed her away, pulled my sketchbook out of her hands, and had run away to come to this very hill. A while later, my aunt found me. She'd simply sat down and put her arm around me, letting me cry until I'd run out of tears. That's when, for the first time, I had noticed a dark moon in the sky. Nevadora. Which moon is that? Up in the sky? I had asked her after calming down a little.
That's the 7th moon of Evergreen, Nevadora,
she had replied, slowly patting me in an attempt to comfort me. I had raised my head to her, asking, 7th? But where's the 6th? And my aunt had looked down at me, sadness written all over her face. I never did get the answer to that question, nor had I asked for it ever again. It was from that moment on that I came here every single time I felt sad, angry, confused, or if I just wanted to sketch. And over time, I might say that I have gotten to know quite a bit more about Silvea and its history with Nevadora. The moons have been at war with each other ever since Nevadora changed its orbit. Yet, everything has been rather silent these past few cycles. There haven't been any attacks in quite some passings, and a part of the forest that had been taken over by Nevadora has stopped expanding itself. So it came that I was able to sit here on this hill, like everything was normal, like there was no war. And even though everything seemed peaceful now, this day would turn out to be anything but normal.
Ehrynn!
The voice had called out so sudden I dropped my pencil in surprise. It took a good 5 seconds before I could pinpoint where the sound was coming from. What's the matter? I asked when I saw Anthea coming up the hill.
It's Hazel! She went to the Nevadoran Forest! Alone!
My eyes widened. A shock went through my whole body and I froze. My breath stopped and I couldn't even get myself to move until Anthea pulled me up, squeezing my arm a bit too tight. Are you sure? I stuttered, and Anthea nodded. I couldn't get myself to bring out even another sound. I was too busy blinking my eyes to fight back the upwelling tears. I'm really just a hopeless case sometimes. But even Anthea, who was known to be quite calm, was shaking all over and holding onto me so tight my arms were hurting. I tried to take a deep breath, shivering all over. But amidst the despair, I felt some kind of feeling rushing through my veins. I had never felt it before. It was like my whole body was filling itself with energy. I didn't feel as afraid anymore. I grabbed Anthea's hand and started running towards the forest.
What are you doing?
She asked, a hint of fear and confusion in her voice. We're going to get Hazel back.
We? But what can we do? We're just 2 pupils. Why don't we go get my parents and...
I interrupted her before she could finish. No, that'll take too long. Besides, I am just a pupil. You are a fairy. Anne, you have the ability to save your sister. Anthea doubted for a second, still running along with me.
But how?
She stopped. I turned to her, uncertain what I could do, what I could say to convince her. Then it came to me. I put my hands on her shoulders, repeating what she had done for me the other day, and said, I know you can do it. Just believe in yourself. Anthea doubted a little longer, weighing the odds in her head, then nodded and continued running, this time overflowing with confidence. I followed her, even though I wasn't as fast as she was, and she wasn't even that fast herself, until we came to the forest. The Nevadoran Forest. A horrible place. My aunt had warned me about it quite a number of times. It used to be just as lively and colourful as the other parts of the Silvean forest, but ever since Nevadora had started attacking us, it had been dying, rapidly. We made it to the edge of the forest, where the roots began to crawl above the ground, and you could see the first signs of the vegetation becoming wilder. Eyes would be lurking at us from the shadows. Eyes that, from the likes of the stories told at Silvea College, belonged to creatures hungry enough to snatch us even with clothing. And in Anthea's case, jewelry and glasses included, if we came too close. We had to slow down in order to keep going. It didn't help much. Every step brought us closer to the dark forest, the flora and fauna becoming more dangerous along the way. I tried to focus on the road ahead, though I don't think it could really be called a road of any kind. More like a path, or maybe not even that either. And tried with all my might to keep my breath somewhat stable. It didn't take long before a shriek sounded through the forest. It went fast, too fast, yet I saw it happen. Anthea falling to her knees, all because of a single wrong step, getting her trapped with her leg in a hole that had, until then, been hidden between the plucks of moss. It caused her to trip and fall over, her leg still stuck in the gap. "Anne!" I shouted, and fastened myself until I got to her.
Be careful!
She brought out in pain. I made sure to keep my eyes on the ground till I was close enough, avoiding every gap on my way there. "Hang on, I'll get you out of there," I promised, grabbing her arm.
It's no use. I'm stuck. Even if you'd managed to get me out, I won't be able to make it far. I think I sprained my ankle.
It took a while for her words to really get through to me. I didn't want to believe her. I'm not leaving you here," I protested. Panic wrapped around me like a cloud enclosing the sun in the sky. I tried to pull her leg out once more. It didn't matter. She was truly stuck.
Don't worry about me. Go get Hazel. She needs you more than I do. I'm safe here. Just a little stuck.
She tried to make it sound light, even though you could see she was in pain. I didn't want to leave her here at the edge of this dark forest, but she was right. If I truly wanted to help Hazel, I couldn't afford to help Anthea first, no matter how much I wanted to. The Nevadoran Forest was filled with danger, and a little girl like Hazel could get killed in a matter of minutes. All right, I'll be back for you. With Hazel." I tried to sound more confident than I was, and it showed.
That's the little sunflower I know,
Anthea said in a soft tone. A little bit of pride slithered through in her voice.
Now go!
I nodded and continued my way, making sure I wouldn't end up stuck in one of the many gaps myself. I turned around one last time to make sure Anthea was safe, and then sprinted deeper into the forest. Roots nor branches could block my way. My legs felt like they were about to give in, but I had to go on. The path seemed to be way longer than I could recall, and the roads were a lot more trouble to pass over. I was lucky to know where to find Hazel, or, well, where she would most likely be. If I was correct, she had gone to the place where her parents always took her before this forest was taken over by Nevadora, in the after effects of the war. She used to talk about it all the time, wishing she could show it to me one day. The only problem was I didn't exactly know how to get there, only vaguely where it should be located. I could easily get lost in this forest, dark as it was, even on a sunny day like this. The further I went, the more the branches tangled my hair and tore up my dress. It became increasingly harder to breathe, and on top of that, the pain in my legs forced me to slow down even further. How long had it been? I tried to remember exactly how many minutes had passed since I'd entered the forest. At first, there had still been indicators. I could still see the sun, and not only this thick fog clouding my sight. But at this point, I could see about as much ahead of me as behind me. Nothing. I tried not to think about the possible threats, the creatures I'd heard about. But as much as I tried, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. I tried rubbing my arms a bit. I hadn't even realized how cold it had become till now that I'd slowed down a little. If I had known I was going for a hike today, I wouldn't have worn such a summery dress. But I hadn't known. How could I have? Oh, what was I thinking coming in here all by myself? I should have listened to Anne. We should have gotten help. I sighed. I guess I've never been good at admitting that. What was that? Better keep going. I sped up my pace again, looking around quite often. My heart was bumping in my chest. It almost took over from the sounds around me. I took a deep breath, and another one. That's when I walked into a hedgerow, and a very irregular one at that. This one had a massive amount of thick, pointy thorns. Walking from left to right and back again did me no good. There was no way around the thing. I did not exactly like the thought of it, but I had to face it. The only way to get past it was to go through. Bracing myself, I took the first few steps in. With my arms crossed before my eyes like this, it was even harder to see through the mist. For a moment, I didn't think I'd make it. The little cuts stung like crazy, and the air became increasingly difficult to breathe in. It even started to hurt. But when I finally made it out, I was met with yet another surprise. It took but a second to take in. I covered my mouth as fast as I could, taking steps back in an effort to stay clear of an omen I had not expected to come across this time of the cycle. Spores. How hadn't I thought of that sooner? It explained the hurt in my lungs perfectly. So much for taking all those notes in college. Right in front of me was a humongous tree. A tree that had once been the heart and life of the forest, now spreading its infection of darkness and a scent of decay, of death. Its branches reached all over the place, with leaves of black and pulsing purple to accompany its gases. Gases that were coming my way. I backed off as fast as I could, but the hedge had closed in behind me, trapping me like a pixie in a jar. I had to think fast. Follow the road back to the edge and... I awoke to a throbbing pain in my head. It took some coughing, but after a while the fog seemed to clear out of my mind. Had I passed out from those spores? If possible, it was even darker around me than before. I couldn't make out a thing in front of me. The only fake bit of light came from above. Above. The hedge! It was right there. I must have fallen off a ledge of some kind. Good thing, it saved me from the spores. And it hadn't bruised me that much. But now what? There was no way of climbing up again. And with that tree still there, going up was not an idea I cared to entertain. I had already begun to give up hope, when I heard a scream coming from the darkness in front of me. Could it be... Hazel! I blurted out, quickly putting my hand in front of my mouth. I took a look around, but it seemed like I remained unheard by any creatures in my current position. When a second scream sounded, I knew for certain.
Get away from me, please! Get away from me!
It was her. I took a great leap of faith and made my way through the unknown assemblage of bushes, branches and leaves in front of me, until it led me to an open spot somewhere in the middle of the forest. There, I saw it. It was a big, wolf-like creature made entirely out of shadows, the darkness creeping around it like fire around a torch. And its eyes, they were eyes filled with furious anger. Whatever it was, it looked at Hazel as though it wanted to rip her apart, piece by piece. And if I didn't stop it in time, it would most likely do so too. Let her go, I murmured, not even realizing I did so till it was too late. The creature turned and looked at me with its flaming eyes. Or I will... By then, I realized what I had said. I scared off and took a step back when the creature examined me. It wasn't focusing on Hazel anymore. It had found a new target. Me. Hazel, run! Was the only thing I could bring out before the creature burst into a spurt and came my way rapidly. Without registering it, I'd already put my hand in front of me, knowing it wasn't going to make a difference. But To my big surprise, it did make a difference. I started glowing a bright green light, feeling a strong wind going through my hair that almost blew me back, but I managed to keep myself from falling over. At last, a magic circle appeared beneath my feet, and a pulse of energy blew back the creature. Was that me? I asked, inspecting my hands as the energy started to fade. As soon as it came, it was all gone. All the magic that had been there seconds before, just gone, leaving me behind in amazement. The creature tried to crawl back up, but I was too stunned to even notice it.
Woo! Way to go, Ehrynn!
I was snapped out of my little amazement. Hazel stood on the other side of the grass field, waving at me. Hazel! I told you to get out of here! I wanted to go to the other side, to meet up with her before the creature could crawl back up. But I was too late. It made its way to her before I did, brought its claw-like arm in the air, and smashed her right into a tree, in front of my eyes. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run and get to her. I wanted to... But I couldn't do any of those things. I was rooted to the spot. Instead, the creature grabbed my arms and lifted me into the air. It was almost breaking my wrist with its giant claws. The thing jerked my body against the tree, sending a vibrating pain through my very bones. I had to suppress a feeling of nausea. The second hit made me feel lightheaded too. I didn't think I'd last another blow, but the creature stopped mid-air. My eyes met with its own. A feeling of pain, of sorrow and despair, of overwhelming sadness. It took a hold of me. I began glowing again. At first, only faintly, barely enough to notice. But that same glow increased till a huge light came from my body, flooding the open space in the forest. The creature was forced to release its hold and merge into the shadows where it came from. The impact when I hit the ground sent yet another shock through my already aching body. With the creature gone, the forest went back to a state of relative peace, leaving nothing but the destruction it had caused to the forest and an echoing whisper. Nevadora is rising. Then everything blurred out. The next thing I remember is waking up in bed. The light of the sun was still annoyingly shining through the little opening in the curtains, but when my eyes had adjusted to the light, I noticed Anthea sitting on the end of my bed. She was looking worried. She sighed in relief when I opened my eyes.
I'm so glad you're awake.
She took my hand and held it close to her chest, a common gesture on Silvea to show familial love. It was comforting. I took a look around, only barely aware of where I was. Anthea? I asked, voice trembling. She nodded and pulled me closer, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe, though breathing in itself caused enough discomfort as it was. I didn't care. I was too glad to see she was fine.
I'm so glad you're all right.
Anthea let out. Her voice was steady at first, but soon broke when she tried to put her feelings into words any further.
When we came to that spot in the woods, I thought I'd lost you.
She sobbed. Her hands clamped around my arms like she would never let go of me again. I put my arms around her too, hiding my face in her hair. I'm all right, Anne. I truly am, I said, comforting her. Only then I realized something. But, Hazel...
She's fine. Don't worry about it.
And your parents?
A little worried, mainly, but mostly just glad you're both all right. They picked me up not long after you left, and we were just in time to see you make that creature disappear. They couldn't believe you pulled that off on your own, little sunflower. And me neither.
But that means... I began as Anthea let go of me. She softly pushed me back a bit so I was forced to lay down again. My whole body felt sore. Did I really defeat that creature of darkness all on my own? I wanted to know.
Yes, I believe so. That was incredibly brave,
Anthea said, almost immediately adding,
but also incredibly stupid. You could have gotten hurt, or worse,
she said in a mother-like tone, the way she always did when things got serious. I'd gotten quite used to it. Though, this time, I knew, deep down, she was right, and I agreed with her. I had rushed right into the face of danger without a plan. Before today, I hadn't even known I could do those magical things. Any outsider would probably think I have a death wish. I guess Anthea noticed my change of mood, and it made her regret her remark, as she tried changing the subject.
Now, I do have something for you. I think you might want to read it,
she said mysteriously, trying to get my attention again or to cheer me up. I couldn't really make out which one was the case. You do? I asked, trying to sound as surprised as I could so she wouldn't feel too bad about herself. I didn't want to make her sad. I never did. And I also have to admit I truly was curious about what she was referring to. What could she possibly have that was so important for me to read? Anthea stood up.
I'll go get it for you.
She held on to a pair of crutches as she made her way through the room. From the corner of my eye, I saw her meeting up with Hazel and her parents in the doorway. There was a good chance they'd want to get a word with me too, but Anthea must have convinced them to wait a little while. I wasn't sure whether to expect a scolding or an overly concerned checkup of every inch of my body, but seeing Astra cupping Hazel's face and kissing the top of her head made everything that was about to come my way worthwhile. The little freckled girl was covered with scratches, but appeared to be fine, for as far as I could tell. I sighed and let my shoulders ease up a little. I noticed how Juniper was searching his pockets till he handed Anthea some kind of blue envelope. Only a few moments later, Anthea came back to me and handed it to me, smiling and with a joyful spark in her eyes. I took the letter from her and examined it. At first, it didn't appear to be anything special, but when I turned it around and saw the A on the seal, I was in need of no more than 2 seconds to figure out what it could be. I felt my cheeks burning up and turning about as red as a rose as I was smiling brighter than I had ever done. No way!
Dwell in darkness, far from the light, from the winds that cradled the echoes of time. Though a story long forgotten lies barren on the ground, phrases left laying, waiting to be found, carried onward only in fragments, telling nothing but a tale with the pieces that remain. And I knew when my wings were torn I'd never fly again, but without dreams forced to walk until the end. Though I live on and strive on, am I even still alive? 'Cause all feels meaning when all I do is survive.